So welcome everybody to a session which is a service advisor focus session. And today we're going to focus on mastering the 4 levels of inspection. I believe that we should seriously focus on the 4 levels of inspection. And most of these are going to be sold, not bought. We covered that in a previous session, that there's a big difference between something being bought and being sold. So I believe that the sales of your sessions, or the sales of your inspections are going to increase, but it's not because more people are going to all of a sudden start coming in and asking you for inspections. It's because you're going to be selling them. And you're going to notice that the first 2 are actually complimentary inspections, and then there's other ones that are purchased inspections. And I was speaking with Kevin King today. He is the king, and he's with Gemcar, and he agreed to send me all of the inspections that they have, which is absolutely fantastic. And so I'm going to be sharing those with you, and you're at liberty to use those. And I know other people have different software packages that have those. So anyway, I want to explain just briefly what Silver Bullets is. My experience has been that people's time is so much busier than ever before. Attention spans are short. And so my experience has been that when people are on a live webinar like this, they stay on to the end. Almost 100% of the time, 100% of the people stay on. However, when I see it on YouTube, which is where I upload these 2 so you can watch them, I see the statistics, and most people don't finish them. Most don't. They simply don't. They start watching, and then they get distracted with something else. So starting next week, I'm running a series called Silver Bullets, and they are all going to be no more than 20 minutes long. I'm sure Patty's laughing in the background and Jeff going, yeah, right, as if you could just talk for 20 minutes, but that's my goal. I have a 5-day service advisor class, and what I'm doing is I'm breaking down each of those into somewhere between 12 and 20-minute segments. The shortest would be 12, the longest would be 20. And instead of covering something like, counter skills and selling skills, it'll be focused on shorter things. In this case, we're talking about selling inspections, which I don't really think I could cover that in just 20 minutes. Maybe able to cover a couple of them in 20 minutes, but I'm putting together one which is on telephone skills, and it'll be just 12 to 20 minutes, I should say, on telephone skills. Another one will be on maintenance. Another one will be on communication. Another one will be on saving time writing estimates. So the idea is silver bullets. Many times people will say to me, what's the biggest silver bullet? And if you Google it or do the of silver bullet, it's a magic bullet, and people are looking for one thing that's going to fix their business, and that's not the case. I put together a session called 101 Silver Bullets, and that was designed for shop owners. And so yes, I'm putting together a series of silver bullet sessions specifically for shop owners as well. And the idea is we make it focused on one subject, and then you can watch it just for that 15 or 20 minutes. For the group members that are on, I'm going to be uploading them all to a site where you can access them. So at any given time, if you think, oh, I want to watch that one on phone skills, or I want to watch that one on maintenance, or I want to watch the one on whatever topic, then you can go there, download that 15 or, again, 12. I started off calling it Take 12. Somebody said that wasn't a great name. It meant take 12 minutes. And I think if you did a couple a week, that would be great. Now I changed it to Silver Bullets. So eventually in the series for service advisors, I'm suspecting there's going to be 21 to 30 different Silver Bullet sessions, all again between 12 and 20 minutes. And then the same thing for shop owners as well. And I'm thinking we're going to get better participation throughout the whole thing when they're just short one topic sessions. And of course, there's no time for fluff in those. So I want to take a look at mastering the 4 levels of inspection. And the thing that we need to do here is to calculate, I think, your technician time per minute value. That's one of the things I chose to add early this morning when I was modifying this. I thought, you know what, I don't think we've covered this with team before. And I think it's important that we calculate the technician time per minute value. So Patty, if you can unmute yourself, I trust you have a calculator handy. And you could just
I do.
Okay, so all you need to do, and I'll explain why I do the math the way we do, you plug in your labor rate. Just so we know, how much is it?
103.47.
Okay, sounds like you've taken training. Now, when you sell $103.47 worth of labor 1 hour, you should sell an equal amount of parts. And then when you see the word extras there, that simply means everything else besides parts. So when we're talking about extras, we're talking about sublet, tires, towing, shop supplies, and environmental fees. One of the biggest changes since I started training in automotive back almost 30 years ago is it used to be that your labor and part sales should be about equal to each other. So if your revenue, let's say back in those days, was a $60 an hour labor rate, you should be selling about $60 worth of parts. Now, having said that, I know some of the arguments that people will use, or comments, or challenges, and they'll say, well, that's not the case in every single job, and that's correct. There's no way in the world every single job you're going to have an equal amount of parts and labor or an equal amount of all the extras. It's simply not going to happen. We do not suggest that you calculate your hourly labor to parts ratio, but you calculate it on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, because it'll balance itself out. Because if you install tires, then the labor is going to be low, and then the amount for the tires is going to be higher. And by the way, the gross profit on tires is not great, but when you calculate what we call the gross profit per hour, the gross profit per hour in tires is actually pretty substantial, and that's why I teach that everybody should sell tires. And then there's jobs like a diagnostics, and there's no parts sold during that 1 hour or two. We're going to show you a comprehensive bumper-to-bumper 300-point inspection. We believe you should sell those. When you're selling those and they take about an hour and a half, you're not selling any parts during that. But there's times where you're selling a super expensive part and the labor wasn't as high. So daily, it would drive you crazy if you did this daily, because one day would be way up and the other one way down. You sold the transmission one day and the parts will be much higher, and the next day you sold lots of diagnostics and the labor is going to be much higher. So I suggest you never do a calculation more than once a month. So when we're talking about the changes between now, 30 years ago and now, is it used to be that your labor should be equal to your parts. So if your labor sales in a month were $26,000, your parts sales should be about the same. However, because we're doing more diagnostics than ever before, we spend a few hours in the morning just finding out what the problem is, then we're not going to be selling as many parts that first portion in the morning. So because we're doing more diagnostics, and of course, we're going to take a look at selling inspections here, which is going to increase your sales, absolutely, but it's going to more change your labor sales than your part sales. So now, because of those changes, when we say parts and the extras, what we're saying here is it used to be labor and parts should be about the same. Now we're saying that labor should be equal to parts, sublet, tires, towing, shop supplies, and environmental fees. So when you look at your income statement and your sales were, let's say, $100,000, your labor sales should have been about $50,000, and the parts, and again, I'll say it just one last time, sublet, tires, towing, shop supplies, and environmental fees should equal that. So Patty, you've got a labor rate of 104, 103.47, you said?
Yeah, 103.47.
Okay, so we multiply that by 2 because we're factoring in everything else that gets sold along with that. So what is your revenue per hour?
206.94.
So we pull that down to the revenue per hour and we divide that by 60 minutes in the hour. So what we're going to find out is what is the technician's time per minute value. So while we're doing this, I'm going to ask one more person. Let's go with Mike Shop. I believe your labor rate's 145. So I'm just going to automatically do the math there. And Michelle, we're going to do yours as well. So all you need to do, Michelle, is take your labor rate, which I believe is 110, 112, something like that. Multiply that by 2 is the revenue per hour. Take the revenue per hour divided by 60 minutes in the hour. You see your technician time per minute value. So if we sell 1 hour's worth of time and the parts and everything to go along with that, and again, not every job, but at the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the end of the year, half the money should come from labor, the other half should come from everything else. So Patty, what is your technician time per minute value?
345.
Okay, so that's pretty high. And then we take the 345 times the number of technicians you have, which is, I believe, 2.
Yep.
And so what is your technician sorry, your
Six.
shop
Six.
permanent value. By the way, I've never done this calculation before with the number of technicians. We just stopped it with technician per minute value, but I wanted to calculate what the shop per minute value is.
$6.90.
So $6.90. Now, Michelle, let's do your shop. We've got 2 people now. So your labor rate's 110 times 2, 220. 220 divided by 60. I don't know, Michelle, if you're actually able to unmute yourself. Maybe I can unmute you. Yeah, you're unmuted. You're there, Michelle? Now, sometimes people have to answer a call or go someplace else. So, well, I'm just going to mute Michelle then. Fine. So, Mike, let's just do Mike's. Patty, you've got a calculator there, and we've got your mic open. So let's take $145 an hour. Now, he's in New York, okay? So technicians earn a lot more there. And I don't know if it's still the case, but a lot of people in New York years ago used to tip the technician. So we multiply that by 2, 290 divided by 60.
Is 484.
Wow. Times, let's just do 2 techs.
968.
Okay, and let's do it by 3. Because he's had as many as 3, I think.
484 times 3. 1452.
Every single minute. You know those timers or those, the debt calculators, people have been created them so that they could see the debt of the country increasing, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Well, it'd be interesting to have that in our shop that was showing. We'll use yours as an example again, Patty. What was your shop per minute value?
690.
So 690 a minute later, 690 a minute later, 690 a minute later. In reality, there's only 2 kinds of time in your day: making money time and losing money time. That is all there is. So it's your responsibility to keep the technician as busy as possible on income producing work. So your technician time per minute value is something that I believe we should calculate with all of our technicians so they understand their technician per minute value. Now, having said that, I've taught this many times over the years, and you can have some fun with that. Some people have calculated the smoking per minute value. Some people have calculated the texting per minute value. And, you could say to the advisor, well, I was waiting for that job, so that just cost us this much money. I had one guy from Napa years ago. We were doing lots of training with them. And he said, could you please stop teaching the technician time per minute value? And I said, why? He said, because we were late with a part once. And the guy gave me a phony invoice, of course. Why is my screen paused? I don't know. Okay, Patty, if you just let me know you're seeing it again, I really don't know what just happened there. Anyway, so he ended up waiting for a part for too long, so he gave an invoice to the part vendor and said, this is how much time I waited for that part. At $2.97 a minute, this is how much you owe me. Well, I told Napa, no, I'm not going to stop doing that. I'm going to continue doing it. Patty, you can hear me fine and the screen's fine?
Yeah, technician time per minute's up.
Yeah, okay, good. So I wanted to cover that because, again, it's your responsibility. Now, just before we get into the inspections themselves, I want to cover something that's big picture. Now, some of you have seen this before. I'm not going to go into detail on it. This is going to become its own silver bullet. And to me, the most important thing for a shop is to sell the labor. Because when you sell the labor, you sell parts, sublet, tires, towing, shop supplies, environmental fees after that. I just received an interview request from a magazine in Canada and said, we'd like to talk to you about selling labor in shops. And I said, well, that's my favorite subject. And so that interview was just done. They're going to print the article probably next month, and I'll be sending out to the team members. And I said, the reason it's my favorite subject is because when you sell the labor, you literally sell everything that goes along with it. And I know I make things sound simple. People say to me that's easier said than done. Well, everything in life is easier said than done. It's a lot easier to say I'm going to go get a cup of coffee than go get the cup of coffee. So everything in life is easier said than done. So let's put that aside. But what I believe people mean is the difference between simple and easy. In reality, a shop needs to spend more time, working on income producing work and be faster at it. That really is all there is to it from a labor perspective. However, according to my favorite author, Dr. Richard Swenson, the average manager is interrupted 232 times every single day. So when you're trying to focus on selling the labor, and again, spending more time working on income producing work and being faster at it, I know that sounds simple, and it is, but it's not easy. And the analogy I give here is football. I never used to understand football. It was very complicated. I'd go to games not understanding. Some people really have a good understanding of the game. Mine was terrible. And I'm not stupid. I mean, I know when they get a touchdown, they get points for that. And I know when they get a field goal, they get points for that. And the convert as well, if they get a point. So that's great. But when they play for 2 or 3 seconds and the crowd would go crazy, and I'm thinking, nothing really happened here, people. Like the play was 5 seconds long and you guys are going crazy. And my brother said, well, they made their first down. I thought, okay, sure, that sounds good. I didn't even know what a down was. Another time I was at a game with him, and our number one enemy in sports is Edmonton. I live in Calgary, and of course, we're not supposed to like Edmonton and vice versa. So we're at a football game in Calgary, and all these people started jumping up, and so did I, cheering, and my brother's still sitting down. And I looked at him embarrassed. I said, what's wrong? He said, Kelly, we're in the Edmonton fan zone. So just because they cheer doesn't mean we should, because they just got their first down. Because again, I didn't understand. So I got educated. My son started playing football. And by the way, just for the record, for those of you that don't know football well, it's really simple. There's a down, and the word down simply means attempt, which means in Canada, you have 3 chances, 3 attempts to get the ball 10 yards in a row. And if you get 10 yards, then you get 3 more chances to get 10 more yards. And if you do, then you get 3 more chances. And in the US, it's 4 chances, so 4 downs. So if somebody would have explained to me a long time ago that a down was an attempt and you get 3 attempts, that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, football really is easy. Get this ball over that line and stop this ball from getting over yours. That really is all there is to it. Football is simple. Score points, get it over the line, stop them from getting it over yours. It's simple, but it's not easy because they've got 260-pound linebackers who want to eat you for their lunch. It's the same thing with what we're looking at here. Yes, if you focus on selling time, the shop will run better. I had a client who took training 20-some years ago this past November, and I'm now training his son. So that's kind of interesting. Actually, that's happening with another shop as well. So I'm feeling a little bit old. But there's one fellow in Toronto, he said, Kelly, when I learned to sell the labor, everything else sold along with that. When we focused on selling more labor, we sold more parts, more sublet, more tires, more towing, more shop supplies, and environmental fees. So the 4 types of time in a day are available time, which is how many hours the technician is there in a day, which is typically 8. How is the average shop in selling that 8 hours a day? Horrific, terrible, poor, all those kinds of words. The average independent repair shop only sells 4 to 5 of those 8 hours every single day. And the analogy that I've heard people say they really grasped it and the light turned on is when I say, what if it was spark plugs? And in the morning at 8 o'clock, there's 8 spark plugs dropped off at your shop by a part vendor. And that day, you know you installed 4 on the customer's vehicle. But at the end of the day, the other 4 that you bought, you saw them, you counted them, are gone. The next day, 8 tires are dropped off at your shop at 8 o'clock in the morning. And that day, you know 4 were installed in a customer's vehicle, but at the end of the day, the other 4 are gone. How long would it take the average owner or manager to freak out to find out where these plugs or tires are going? Day 1 or day 2? Well, it would be day 1. We bought 8, we sold 4, where are they? And yet many days a shop buys 8 hours. And it's not about flat rate or hourly. It's not about how many hours we pay them or how we pay them. We're looking at available time here. How many hours are they available in a day, regardless of how they're paid? If I have 8 hours of labor inventory, the goal should be to sell. Our goal is actually 9 hours out of the 8. Actual time is how much time the technician spends on income producing work. So anything that doesn't make money, i.e. a comeback working on customer vehicles company vehicles, is not actual time. Sold time is how much time the customer is charged for. How many times does the actual time we spend working on customers' vehicle lower than the sold time that we had? Our goal is that your shop gets paid for everything you do at the right amount of money. Now, some shops get paid for the time, but the labor rate's too low or the effective labor rate's too low. So my goal is that you sell all of the time that's available to you, which is fair, and that you get paid for all of that. Now, you may not get paid for every available hour every single day, all 8, but what's really sad is when the actual time, how much time you spent, exceeds the amount of time that you sold. So we worked and didn't make money. Now, if I'm not going to make money, I'd rather, do something with my kids, shoot pool or something, rather than working at it. And there's a lot of people out there, I assure you, that are working really, really hard and aren't making money, and they spend a lot of time working on stuff that they don't get paid for at all. And then E-time is what we call the expense time. That's non-productive time, and that's things like waiting for parts, waiting for authorization, waiting for work. You can read that on your own. So my point here is, one of your primary goals as a service advisor is to keep the technicians as busy as possible on income-producing work. The 3 calculations that help us determine that is productivity, efficiency, proficiency. And I'm going to make this super quick. Again, there's a whole session just on this. Technician time management. What is productivity? Is the amount of time a day a technician spends actually working on cars, income-producing work. The more inspections that you sell, the easier it is to keep your technicians productive. Efficiency is how fast the technician is. For the most part, productivity is your job as a service advisor or an owner on the counter. Whoever's on the counter is responsible, and the owner too, even if they're not on the counter per se, because if there's a lack of marketing, then that reduces the amount of time spent on work, less car count, etc. So productivity is almost all your responsibility as an advisor. And if you focus really hard on the 4 levels of inspection that we're going to cover, you are going to increase your technician's productivity. Now, not all of those inspections are sold. 2 are complimentary, the other 2 are sold. But the more you sell those 2 levels, the more work you will find. But the better the techs do on finding the work in the first 2 inspections and the last 2, but because the first 2 aren't sold, it's an opportunity to find needed work, stuff that needs to be done. So productivity, it's your job as a service advisor to keep the tech productive. If we're slow in getting them their next work order or repair order, or whatever you want to call it, that's not their fault. If the part hasn't arrived, that's not their fault. If they get there at 7:30 in the morning, and so does the service advisor, and they're waiting, standing there because the service advisor is busy with customers, that is not their responsibility. Technicians control very low amounts of the productivity. That's not so much their responsibility. There's a bit of an impact there. I won't get into the detail of that. Efficiency is primarily the technician's responsibility. So I back up to productivity. Again, how much time in the day is spent on income producing work of the 8 hours that they're there. So the highest this number can be, the absolute highest it can be, is 100%. Productivity cannot exceed 100%. Efficiency should, proficiency should, but productivity cannot. Some people use the word productivity in lieu of the word efficiency or proficiency, but productivity is the time of the day a technician spends actually working on cars, income producing. So Patty, if I'm at your shop for 8 hours, and at the end of the 8 hours, excluding lunch, you say, Kelly, how much time did you spend working on cars today? I go, 10, yeah, pretty much 10. Well, that's impossible. If I was warm body in your premise for 8 hours, I left for lunch, I was in there for 8 hours, I cannot say I spent 9 hours working on cars. That's impossible. Our goal here is 90%. We would like to see a technician spend 90% of the day working on stuff that makes money, which only means 10% of the day wasted in the things that we looked at back here with E-time, waiting for work, filling in for the advisor, those kinds of things, working on company vehicles or comebacks. So it's your responsibility to keep the technician busy. And the better job you do in these 4 levels of inspection, the more work you're going to find, and you're going to be able to keep your technicians a lot more productive. Nothing impacts your profitability more so than productivity, how much time working on income producing work, and efficiency, how fast the tech is. Now, it's for the most part the technician's responsibility to be efficient. It means they're motivated, they're inspired, they've got the right tools, they're organized, they're really efficient at getting jobs in and out. They're not walking so slow that you think they're walking backwards. Their efficiency is really good, but the shop has an impact there as well. And the service advisor, you have an impact there as well. If I'm a tech and you sell 5 oil changes today, I'm not going to be very efficient. There's grunt work and gravy work. And so, but if you sell inspections, if you sell 60,000 mile service or 96,000 kilometer services, the technician's going to be a lot more efficient. Michelle's online. She's been just the queen of selling transmission services. Well, those are highly profitable. Why? Because they are high efficiency jobs. So yes, as a service advisor, you do control efficiency. However, most of that is the responsibility of the technician. Proficiency is simply the combination of the two. When you add up how much time was spent working on income producing work and how much time we sold, that is proficiency. So back to the spark plugs. If you bought 8 spark plugs and you sold 8, that would be a proficiency in this case of 100%. If you sold 4 spark plugs, that would be a proficiency of 50%. If you only sold 2, that would be 25%. So proficiency is the percentage of the inventory sold. In this case, that's labor. And again, the more inspections that you sell, the more proficient the shop is going to be. So proficiency is how much time of the day was sold. It's a combination of, I already said, productivity and efficiency. If your efficiency is low, if your proficiency is low, if we only sold 6 hours today or 5 hours today, one of two things are both are wrong. Productivity, we didn't spend enough time working on income producing work, or efficiency, or a combination of the two. It's that simple. If the time's not being sold, one of two things or both is the problem. Now, proficiency relates to sales. So if you spend 2 hours working on a job, but you only charge the customer for 1, that definitely decreases your efficiency and your proficiency. So yes, it could be that you spent the time but didn't get paid for it. Back up to what I was talking about, too often where actual time spent is actually more time than we actually got sold for. So the calculation here is simple. You take sold time divided by available time. Each of these has its own calculations. Efficiency, you take the sold time. So if we gave away time or it took the tech longer or whatever, then our sold time is lower. So the efficiency is going to be lower. Our benchmark is 125%. In management groups in the past, we've tracked it, and the average awesome technician in North America is 135% efficient. Proficiency, again, is the combination of the two. We take the sold time divided by the available time, and that gives us 112%. So it's really simple. If your tech is there 8 hours in a day, and they're 90% productive, which means they spend 90% of that 8 hours or 7.2 hours working on stuff that makes money, and we sold 9, that would be 9 hours sold. So if we sell 9 hours divided by the 8 available, that's 112. So our goal for a shop is to sell 112% of their labor inventory. I know this to be true because I've seen it in countless shops where the average is only about 50 to 55% of the sold time. So that makes it extremely important to focus on the time. So now let's take a look at the 4 levels of inspection. I wanted to cover that technician time per minute value. It's very expensive when a technician doesn't have something to work on or they're working on the wrong kind of work. And so selling inspections is going to be a huge part of that. Now, I used to always call this the walk-around inspection, which I wasn't really thrilled with that name. So I changed it super early this morning to arrival. But then people say, well, what about the customer that dropped off the car in the morning or at night? In the night drop box, they put the keys. So I believe it should be done when the customer arrives at the shop. However, if the car is already there, then we're going to call it an initial inspection. And these are complementary. In as many instances as possible, you should perform a walk-around inspection when the vehicle arrives or when you walk out to a vehicle that's already there. It is preferable to do it with the customer. However, there are some circumstances that may not be ideal. If it's super cold outside, you probably don't want to walk out to the car with the customer. And again, if it was night drop box, you don't have a choice there. We believe that you should spread out your appointments in the morning. Too many shops practice what I call 8 and wait. And I don't mean you get there at 8 and wait for your oil change to be done. I mean that you get there at 8 o'clock in the morning with a whole bunch of other people because it's the group appointment. and now I'm standing in lineup waiting for you to finish with the person in front of you. Well, if you have several people show up at the same time, which, by the way, is usually our fault, as a consumer, I can tell you at least 90, if not 95% of the appointments that I've had, bring it in at 8, bring it in at 8, bring it in at 8, no big surprise. That's the way a lot of shops operate. And people will challenge that and say, yes, but we open at 8. Great, but you don't want everybody showing up at 8 o'clock in the morning. We believe that maybe 8, 8:10, 8:20, 8:30. I know another trainer that teaches 7 minutes apart. That's kind of fun, I guess. But I believe you need about 10 minutes in between customers to do the things that you need to do. The problem is, if somebody's behind this customer, highly unlikely that I'm going to spend extra time with them. Highly unlikely am I going to walk out and do a walk-around inspection on their vehicle. Sometimes we're in such a hurry, we just say, okay, give me the keys and call me and tell me what you need done. I can tell you that at least 90% of independent repair shops do not get signatures in the morning when the customer drops off the vehicle. Sometimes they're just, not a routine, it's not a habit yet, or they simply didn't have time. And it takes seconds to get a signature, and we recommend a signature every single time with every single invoice. And even in the night drop box, if the envelope is there with a signature, then they can sign that. So there's times where you can't always do this, but if you spread apart your appointments about 10 minutes apart, we suggest that you walk out to the vehicle. Now, having said this is my 31st year training, and of all the things that are the least implemented, I would say walk-around inspections are in the top 10. There's not a lot of people who go back and do this, but the people who do love it. So what you do is you simply look at the customer and say, let's go out to your vehicle to get some information. They'll follow you. Let's go out. You're inviting them. You hold the door open for them, and they walk out to the vehicle. Now, if they say, what is this for? You could say, well, we'd like to get some information about the vehicle. So when you walk out, the one thing you want to do is compliment the vehicle if that's possible. If it's a piece of crap, you're not going to say, what a nice car. You might say, what a nice color, or do you always keep it this clean, or something like that. Number two, you want to obtain the current mileage, because the person may be there for brakes, but they don't know that they need an oil change. And so we want to make sure we check the current mileage of the vehicle and look at the oil change sticker. So instead of noticing later on that it needs an oil change and having to call them while the customer's still there, we can get that mileage and compare it to the oil change sticker. The other reason for that is because if they're ready for a major service, in the US, it's easy, 30, 60, 90,000 miles at the major services, then you can talk to them about the maintenance that needs to be done. And we covered that a couple weeks ago in selling factory recommended services. We suggest that you get the VIN number when you're out at the vehicle, unless you already have it. Check for expired tags, or in Canada, we call it license. You don't want to be driving around on the street and get pulled over because the license plates are expired. And at the same time, you want to note any damage. The question would be, how many times has your shop been accused of scratching a car, denting a car, losing a hubcap, something like that? It happens. So we suggest that you note any damage on the vehicle. Now, excessive tire wear, the person doesn't pay attention to their tires typically. So you can go, oh, I see that your tires are quite worn, or you can look at the type of tire wear. Maybe they need an alignment and haven't had one done, skipped it for whatever reason. So that's an opportunity to sell tires. But things like scratches and dents, I recommend if the vehicle has a scratch on it, all you do is just touch the scratch. Just, you don't point it out and say, my God, where did that happen? And if there's any dents, you can say, ouch, or something like that. The point is, we want to make it clear to them that that scratch or that dent was there before the vehicle arrived. Things like missing hubcaps. I got to tell you a funny story. I had a fellow in a class. His name is James Allen. And we were talking about procedures, and he was talking about how many times that he's had to buy people's hubcaps because they said it was there when I came in, now it's gone. And in that class, we were talking about consistency, and that you should make sure that the technicians do the exact same test drive every single time. And it might be distance. A short test drive is one route, and a longer test drive is another route. And sometimes, of course, you want to take it on the interstate or highway and get it up to 100K or 60 miles an hour or whatever. Anyway, when it came to the short one, he said, yeah, we do that every single time. I said, well, why don't you go pick up all those hubcaps that you've been losing on those those test drives. Anyway, you can end up spending some pretty serious money on hubcaps, cracked windshields. Now, that's so they realize it was there before. And if it's just a chip, our recommendation is that you invest in a chip repair kit. They're very inexpensive. You find them on Google. Lots of companies sell them. They're just a few $100s, and it takes 20 minutes to learn how to do it. And you could be doing those. So you say to a customer, "Oh, I noticed you have a windshield chip. We can fix that for you right now today if you'd like, then save you the time of going someplace else, and it's only X number of dollars." If it's a cracked windshield, it's something you may want to say, "By the way, would you like us to take care of that?" Now, if the closest glass company is super far away and they don't pick up the vehicles, then it's not something you may want to do as a sublet, but sometimes the glass company will pick it up or they're close by, so it's an opportunity to sell them a windshield that they need. Missing gas caps, it happens, that's not a big one. Broken antenna or other damage. While you're doing the walk-around inspections, technicians love this part of this inspection. Inquire if the customer has an alarm system. That's kind of nice to know before we do anything else. And we ask them where the wheel tool lock is located, if applicable. With a technician's time value of about $4 a minute, we don't want to have the technicians trying to figure out where the wheel tool lock is. So we want to make sure that we know that, and maybe they're not there for anything related to wheels today, but in the future, we can put it in the computer so the technician knows. And I also think that the walk-around inspection is an opportunity, and I'm just going to stop the share here. I want to show you a walk-around inspection. Now, having said that, the person who helped build this particular walk-around inspection with me, way too detailed. And it doesn't need to be anywhere near as detailed as that. And I want to take a look at where the walk-around inspection is. So it's a little bit more detailed than I would certainly like it to be. But the idea here is that when you're out there on the vehicle, you have an opportunity to put in this floor mats and etc. So it's nice for the customer to know that you use floor mats or seat covers. What I don't like as a customer is when you pick up your vehicle and the floor mats are still there. I don't think that's a good approach at all. I've had people say, "Yeah, we left it in the vehicle," and the customer crumbled it up and threw it on the lot. I don't like them because they get messy and dirty and such and wet. So our recommendation is that you do the walk-around inspection. Now, you should be seeing the walk-around inspection, correct?
Yep, that's up.
Thank you very much. Thank you for doing this, Patty. The walk-around inspection, quality control inspection, same thing. A thing that you may want to note is the VIN number. Of course, we already said that. The mileage on the vehicle, we already said that. We also suggest that you see what the fuel level is. You don't want a technician going out on a test drive in a vehicle and running out of gas. I've seen that happen. And then sometimes the person, it's rare, but they might complain, "Well, how come you drove this much in my car?" Or you did a test drive, but you only did 0.3 miles or something. So you have that information just in case. So there's the fuel. And then I'm not going to read every line to you. I bore you to tears. But there's the door in the front, and there's the tire wear, grill, headlights, glass, body, wheel. Again, something missing or damaged. The interior a little bit, wiper blades. And then we've got the driver rear, same type of thing. Passenger rear, same kind of thing. And then over here, we can put the work performed as requested. We don't really need that so much because it's in the computer, of course. And then you can notice any of the other things. And we believe that we should always have a no charge item on every single invoice, every single time. When I invoice a client such as a large part company, I will always add something that's complimentary. I may provide additional handouts, articles. I put that no charge. If you've been to one of my live sessions, I put out chocolate bars and mints and candies, and then I'll put, additional articles, treats, no charge. So I believe we should always have some kind of no charge item. And so if you did some of these things, you check the tire pressure, then you can put that on there, no charge. I was listening to a podcast from Carm Capriato, who's got some pretty neat stuff. And one shop said they have their battery tester on each of the carts, and they do a battery test every single time the vehicle's in the shop. And so if you do that and you don't charge for it, I think on that final invoice, it should say tested battery, and tell them it's in good shape and that there's no charge for that. So if we're going to do something for free, I believe we should tell them that. So back to the workbook itself, and I'll scroll down here. So the 4 levels of inspection, number 1 is the walk-around inspection. If you're not doing those, I'm going to encourage you to do them every single time on every single vehicle. And then there's the cursory inspections. And the cursory inspections are done usually every single time, every single vehicle. In a class, I'll ask people, what is an LOF? And they look at me like, yeah, right, lube up oil filter. I say, no, it's a labor opportunity of the future. When we do the oil change, there's really no point in doing an oil change without the inspection that goes along with it. And it should be a written inspection, or if you've got tablets, electronic. But it should be every single vehicle, and they should be checking that off. What I don't like, I went to a shop one time, got an oil change done. They took the inspection form, and I used to show this as a sample in the class, and it shows okay, and the person took the pen and wrote it all the way down. And I thought, you didn't inspect any of it. Probably you just took your pen and went, yep, it's all done. In some states, including California, when you do an inspection, you're not allowed to do that. You are required by law to actually put a check mark in each of those boxes. So I think we should have our technicians do the exact same thing and not run a pen all the way down. A labor opportunity future, when we inspect the vehicle, we're going to find the work that needs to be done. One thing I should have mentioned it earlier is statistically in an independent repair shop, for every $1 in maintenance and repairs that you find, $7 in needed repairs leaves. So we find some of the work, but we didn't find all of the work. Sometimes we're too busy. We only did what the customer came in for, and we certainly didn't want to try to sell them anything else because it can't get done today. And if we tell them it needs to be done, they say, can you do it today? We say, no, we don't want that happening. Some people will find stuff and say, there's no way I'm pointing that out to them. There's no way they could find that out later on. Well, we are responsible to inspect the vehicle correctly and make the customer aware. Some people don't want to tell the customer because they're afraid the customer is going to think, oh, you're trying to sell me something I don't need. There is billions of dollars driving around in our streets of undone work, pent up repairs. Some people are brilliant at looking after the vehicle. Some people are really poor at it. Some people, again, are afraid to tell them about the price of something else. The survey was done. If your car needs stuff, would you rather find out right now today what needs to be done or bite-sized? And the majority of people simply wanted it all today. That doesn't mean they're all going to buy it. There's no way they're all going to buy it. But it's our responsibility to point out the work. So for every $1 needed, $7 in needed repairs leaves. In our management groups that I ran in Canada and in the US, part of it was an on-site evaluation. Now, the group we have right now is an online group, so we don't do that, although we are going to be having a full group meeting sometime later this year, probably October. And what we would do is in that inspection, we'd ask permission, of course, but we'd say to the shop owner, okay, we want to take out a vehicle that's ready to go, that one that's backed in right there. We can do that. They don't tell us which vehicle we choose. But yeah, those 3 vehicles are done, ready to go. So a team from the team will get into the vehicle, a technician, a service advisor, an owner manager, take the vehicle for a short test drive, bring it back, put it up on the lift. I mean, these people are professionals. They know what they're doing. You wouldn't want me putting the car up on the lift and doing this. But they find the work that was there that needed to be done, that for whatever reason, we didn't have time, we didn't care, we didn't want to sell it, whatever. And there's always additional work that needs to be done. So it's our responsibility to slow down the machine a little bit and make sure the inspections are done every single time. And I know some really great shops that say, you know what, we're not really good at this. We are okay at it. Some say we're good, but not great at it. I believe as a service advisor, when a technician hands back a completed work order that does not have the inspection form attached or filled in, you have the right to hand back that work order and say this is an incomplete repair order. Now, I'm not going to show you samples of all of these. I'm going to be sending them out to you. There are many samples that we have. I know, Patty, you sent me some today. There's some in GemCar. Other shop management systems have them. And I'm not going to take the time to bore you with every single one of these. But The cursory inspections, your shop probably has one. The samples, again, I'm going to send them to you, but our recommendation is that you create your own and that you have your technicians, or if you haven't already done so, have your technicians create your own shop one. Now, it's kind of interesting because not every tech will agree to what should be done. Hold up. Not every tech will agree with what should be done. However, you want to have an inspection form that everybody is okay with. And I want to make this clear that it's a no wrench inspection. We're not pulling off wheels. We're not doing a full brake inspection. This is what we call internally as a no wrench inspection. So we don't say that to the customer. It's a no wrench inspection internally, but it makes it very clear that this does not include a brake inspection. Now, when you do the walk around inspection, when you do the cursory inspection, it may lead to you seeing a whole bunch of other things. We don't want the technician going off in a safari by going, oh, look at this and look at this and look at the wheels and we do this. If we find a lot of things like that, it might be an opportunity to sell the customer a comprehensive inspection. Based on the inspection the technician performed, we recommend our comprehensive bumper-to-bumper inspection. The third is the seasonal or quarterly inspections, and I have samples of those to send you as well. These should be sold to the customer for all 4 seasons. Now, I've taught that in San Diego, and they go, what are you talking about? It's 80 degrees outside almost every single day, and it rains a little bit. So not every area has seasons, but I would call it a quarterly inspection. We believe that we should see our customer 4 times a year. Now, if they drive a lot, they're salespeople and spend their life in their car, they need an oil change maybe every 5 or 7 weeks. Our family drove so much years ago, we needed an oil change every 5 weeks, literally. Well, then quarterly or seasonal is not going to be high enough. So if they drive more, we need to see them more based on oil changes and mileage. But if they drive less than that, we should still see them 4 times a year. And our goal is that we monitor the vehicle for the customer so we see things before they become serious. Jim Voigt, I've talked about him. He is one of the kings of pre-booking appointments, and he started this way back in 2004. This is now 2018. He still does it. They educate their customers that they want to monitor the vehicle and bring it in. Maybe it's going to need an oil change that time. Maybe it's going to need a brake inspection, whatever. But they want to see the vehicle 4 times a year, and they do an inspection gearing up for the season coming ahead for heating, cooling, whatever. And so what they do is when you're in his shop, you're there for the spring, he books your summer appointment. When you're there in the summer, he books the fall appointment. And again, if you don't have the seasons like we do here in many places, you can sell it as a quarterly inspection. We want to monitor the vehicle and see you 4 times a year. On the tip here, I put always pre-book the next appointment. Always, always, always. You should never say to a customer, we'll see you next time. What does that mean? The next time your car breaks down, hopefully you're close to us and we can fix it for you. That's not what this is about. This is pre-booking the next appointment so they know in advance. Now, some people say they pre-book, but what they're doing is this. The oil change sticker tells them the mileage and the day or the month that it should come back in, or they make a phone call or send a postcard or a letter or an email reminding them that they need an oil change. That is not pre-booking. That is simply reminding somebody that they should book an appointment. What we're talking about here is confirming that they already have one. And the best approach I've seen to this is that you staple your next appointment card. In our management groups, almost everybody has it now. And it simply says your next appointment is the week of. So it's not a specific day. So you don't have to worry, I can't make it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or I don't know. You simply say your spring appointment is on April 2nd through the 9th. Your fall appointment is whatever date. And it could be when you're taking off tires, like right now, if you've got winter tire season ending, we recommend that you make the appointment to have those winter tires put back on. And so you make the appointment for next October. Now, again, this is a silver bullet in all of itself is pre-booking the next appointment. But when it comes to these seasonal inspections, the key isn't to remind them that it's time for their seasonal inspection. It's time to remind them they already have one. And a comment I made below the 3 seasonal quarterly inspection headline says these are typically glorified brake inspections. So these are wrench inspections, so to speak, compared to the non-wrench inspections. And we want to do one with every single labor opportunity of the future. And we believe it should be done, sorry, not every oil change. It may include an oil change is what I meant there. And normally it's going to include a brake inspection as well. And so we suggest that you have a inspection form. You can even show it to the customer. The tech should be very familiar with it. Here's our spring, summer, fall, winter. The last part of this is the comprehensive vehicle inspection, what we call the bumper to bumper. Now, I have samples that I'm going to provide to you. They are comprehensive, typically 300-point inspections. But with that sample, I'm going to end the session, and then if you want to stay on past that time, and I can show you the samples. Most likely, if you're a team member shop, you already have this 4-page inspection process. To let you know, we've actually created a 6-page comprehensive vehicle inspection, and I'm having some of the group members who are technicians to help make sure everything they believe is accurate there. The 4-page one, just to let you know, is a little bit dated. It's better for some older vehicles. Some people, what they do is they have a 4-page inspection for vehicles that are 10 years and older, and the other one for a shorter one. But, you know, it doesn't matter if there's things on there that are more applicable to an older vehicle, like backfiring doesn't really happen anymore. Some of those things, that's okay. The customer doesn't get a copy of this. They don't read through every single line. The idea here is that you give it to the technician. If it's not applicable, they can skip over it. So the 6-page one that we're working on modifying is still the case. Now, I want to show you something. Let's say a customer comes in and they are looking at buying a vehicle. That happens. People come in and say, I'm looking at buying this vehicle. Can you inspect it for me? Now, would you offer them a cursory inspection that you do with every oil change? Would you offer them a seasonal inspection? Or would you offer them a comprehensive inspection? By the way, I didn't cover this, I don't think. Yeah, I will come back to that. Or do you think we should do this comprehensive bumper-to-bumper inspection? If I'm going to spend $10, $15, $20, $50,000 in a vehicle, I don't just want your opinion about the vehicle. I want you to inspect it. Now, if a person comes in and it's an older vehicle and the floorboards are worn out or whatever, you notice major things going on and knocking the engine, we're not going to sell them a comprehensive inspection. We'd say, you know what, you should do a cursory and charge them for this. And maybe it's going to be one of these seasonal type inspections. But here's my experience. I've had people say, here's what I do. If somebody wants to inspect a vehicle, I will put in front of them the seasonal inspection, which let's say is a 30-point inspection, and it's whatever dollars. Beside that, they will put the comprehensive bumper-to-bumper 300-point inspection. And say the 30-point inspection is, let's say, $60, and our comprehensive inspection is $180. Which would you like? I can tell you this from people coming back and reporting what happens. Most people, if they're buying a vehicle, want the most complete inspection. Again, they don't just want your opinion about this vehicle, they want to know. And they may choose to not buy that vehicle because of the results of the inspection. The other thing people have said is when you charge for these inspections, it is far more likely that the person's going to buy the work that's needed, because they're not going to think, well, you did the inspection for free and now you're trying to sell me something. And when you take a look at those sting operations where they go out to shops and they put the hidden cameras and they're trying to find out people, excuse me, who are not trustworthy or honest. Almost everyone I've seen is for a chain of shops. There was a really, really bad one that was done with Marketplace in Canada. You can search at Marketplace Automotive Repair Shop Sting. Some of the things they were doing were absolutely, completely brutal. They were telling people they needed fluid flushes that were just done. One in Ontario, by the way, they brought it into a shop, replaced every single fluid, brought the vehicle to this quick lube, and they told them that they needed a transmission service, which they had dyed a different color. And so bottom line is they charged somebody for a transmission service that they didn't need, and they didn't even actually do it. And they'll show people the color of the fluid and say this needs to be done. Well, that's rare. I mean, that's a really rare thing, and the media certainly likes to focus on that. but it's our responsibility to find the work that needs to be done. And those sting operations, when you see them, I saw one with a shop in California, a chain of shops. And the bottom line is, with both of these things that I just mentioned, the end of the scam operation or sting operation when they're exposing these shops is this: avoid shops that do things for free and avoid shops that do things really cheap, like a $9.99 oil change. Avoid shops that do free brake inspections. They actually say that, because shops that typically do free brake inspections, not all, but lots, are trying to sell the person something they don't need, or charging a lot more because they need to get paid for the brake inspection they just did. A proper brake inspection, removing all four wheels, is going to be about a half-hour's job. So a half hour at $3 a minute, you can't give those away. You can't give away anything that costs you money. So we need to charge for the inspection. Now, if the car is still there and the wheels are off and it's up on the lift, and the person says, yes, go ahead and do it today, I have no issue when somebody says, we won't charge you for the inspection. I've had people say, well, we reduced the inspection by 50%. I have no problem with people actually charging for the inspection. However, if they do a free brake inspection and that customer leaves and says they're coming back, too often they don't come back. I asked a series of shops up in Alaska years ago. It was a Midas group. I said, what's the no-show rate on a free brake inspection? And somebody said, they all come. And somebody said, no way, they don't. They sometimes come to you, you do the free brake inspection, they take the results of the inspection, and they take the list and they go buy their own parts and do it themselves. They just wanted a proper, thorough inspection done by a proper technician. So back to this. Hours per repair order, I should have covered this, sorry. You take your total sales, you divide by your shop's labor rate, and you're going to see the hours per repair order. And sorry, that total labor sales is what that should be here, total labor sales. So you take that and you, I'll spell it in US, which is fine for Canadians as well. But you take your total labor sales divided by your shop rate, and you're going to see your hours per repair order. The average independent repair shop is 1.1 to 1.2 hours per repair order. Our goal is 3. The fellow that I told you about earlier, name's James Allen. I think he's now retired, but when he hired me to do an on-site evaluation years ago, actually it was the first one I did the calculation, and he was at 0.67 hours per repair order. Not even one. Get it in, get it out, get it in, get it out, get it in, get it out, get it in, get it out. They were working on, and I don't make this stuff up, 23,000 vehicles per year, which I believe was 80 a day. It was just completely insane. And, excuse me, that's the shop that was losing the hubcaps. And I don't make this stuff up. One day, a lady came to the shop, picked up her vehicle. She was driving off the lot in the parking lot, and all 4 wheels fell off. And she was really nice. Oh, James, that's okay. Stuff happens. Well, in a lot of places, there'd be a lawsuit against that. Anyway, you want to do the job properly. And by the way, I think he's up to like 1.8 hours per repair to the last I heard. And he's still a tire shop. So when you're a tire shop, of course, you're going to not see 3 hours per repair order. If you sell a lot of tires, maybe your goal is 1.5, maybe 2 hours per repair order. But again, if your shop is at a lower hours per repair order, it's typically because the inspections are not being done or we're not selling additional work. So I want to take a look at the opportunities to sell these inspections. And I believe that there are opportunities to sell these every single day. And maybe if the shop's super slow, maybe it's not every single day, every single week. I don't like to exaggerate. But if you're a small shop, maybe you don't have opportunity every single day. But if you're a large shop with like one of the shops in our group that has 10 techs, 13 bays, well, they have opportunities to sell these every single day. So here's some of the ones I've come up with. Customer comes in with a list. Sometimes a person comes in and says, oh boy, there's some stuff in the vehicle, and they've been making a list on their refrigerator. I've actually had shops put together those fridge magnet notes, and it says stuff to do on the car, and people put it on their fridge and add stuff to that list. Use it for other stuff too, that's the idea. But they'll come in and say, I'm concerned about this, and we got this, and it's pulling, and it's doing this. Say, oh, I see that you have several concerns with the automobile. I'm going to recommend that we perform this comprehensive, show them the form, this comprehensive 300-point inspection. It includes all the areas that you're concerned about, make sure it does. and it's only X number of dollars. We can take care of that for you today, and it's going to give you peace of mind knowing a big picture view of the vehicle, not just these 8 or 9 or 10 things. So sometimes people come in with their list. When we walk out to the vehicle, we do the walk around, we see the mileage, and we can find out what the warranty on that vehicle is. So if the warranty is going to be ending soon, like let's say in 3,000 miles or 10,000 miles or 8,000 kilometers, whatever, this is an opportunity to say, you know what, I see that your warranty is going to be ending, and we suggest that you perform this comprehensive 300-point bumper-to-bumper inspection. Show it to them. Let them hold it in their hands. And you say, this is what we recommend that you have done, so that before the warranty ends, you can take this and go back to the dealership and get anything that needs to be done under warranty. That is a great service to the customer. And I've heard way too many stories about people being loyal to their dealership, and the car went out of warranty, and shortly after something went wrong, and they wouldn't take care of them as goodwill. Some do, but most don't. So you want to make sure that you're doing this as a service for your customer. The person's going on a trip. These are great to sell in the summertime, just pre-summer, going on a trip. Of course, pre-winter. Now we're talking about the other inspections earlier, the seasonal, but maybe a person hasn't been doing those and they haven't had a proper inspection done. So maybe we are going to do a proper inspection for the winter. Like up in Alaska, you do not want to be driving around in a vehicle that is not in condition to drive. Pre-summer, sometimes, number 6, a person comes into the shop or they drive up and we see a for sale sign in the window of the vehicle. This is an opportunity to say, oh, I see you're selling your vehicle. Have you had an opportunity to have a comprehensive vehicle inspection done? Now, some people, that's the last thing they want because they know exactly why they're selling that puppy, but they can say, no, actually, I haven't. So we're going to recommend that we perform this 300-point bumper-to-bumper inspection, and you can build the price of this into the vehicle you're selling and show the person that this vehicle is worth what you're asking for it. Sometimes the person's giving the vehicle to a friend or a relative and would want to have it inspected. I had a Toyota Corolla I had, and I bought a van and I gave it to my mother, Toyota to my mother and her husband. But before I gave it to them at Arrows Automotive, I said, I want to buy one of your 300-point bumper-to-bumper inspections because I'm not going to give them a vehicle if it's got issues with it. The vehicle's been in storage. What could possibly be wrong? And I'm sure we've all had experiences where somebody's husband died or somebody died, and the vehicle, they think, well, let's bring it into the shop. And I wrote an article about one guy who, this lady, her husband died. She brought this Jaguar in that had been sitting for years, and they started to do some work, and they found more work, and she was getting like they were trying to rip her off. Well, if a vehicle's been in storage that long, I wouldn't want to do any work. People say, well, what could possibly be wrong with it? It's been in storage for 3 years. Lots. So if the vehicle's been in storage, you can start by saying, because it's been in storage, we'd like to see a big picture right up front, and we suggest this comprehensive vehicle inspection. Vehicle's been in an accident. Sometimes they know the body damage of the vehicle, but not the potential mechanical issues that went wrong. Back to school, what a great opportunity. The kids are going back to school, going back to college, and an opportunity to have the vehicle inspection before they head off to college. This next one sounds like a joke, but it's not. Back from school. Oh, so your son's back from college, is he, with the car? Have you had an opportunity to inspect the vehicle? I tell you, my dad had this old station wagon that did stuff he had no idea it could do. Some of the stuff we did in that poor car. And rental cars, by the way, that happens too. So they're back from school. College students are not known to spend a lot of money repairing a car. It cuts into the beer money. Almost done here. Number 13, prior to an expensive repair. Before replacing an engine, before replacing a transmission, before doing a major expensive repair, we can say, tell you what, because of the cost, don't say expensive, never use the word expensive, but because of the cost of this repair, I'm going to recommend that we first perform a comprehensive vehicle inspection so you can make an intelligent buying decision or an educated buying decision before we go ahead with that repair. Sometimes we do an expensive repair. A little while later, something else goes wrong. And they say, well, if I would have known this is going to happen, I wouldn't have done that. So it's a great service to sell them a comprehensive inspection before that repair, and then you give them the results of the inspection. The vehicle's been shipped. That doesn't happen a lot, but it can. If you live closer to, some Army bases or Navy bases, etc., that's more common. Technician returns from a scary test drive. A technician comes back, they're white knuckling it. They say, I need a drink. My God, this car was a nightmare to drive. It could be the end of a lease. This one's great. You should ask the customer, is this an owned vehicle? Is it a leased vehicle? And if the vehicle's lease is ending 36 months or 48 months or whatever, this is a great opportunity to perform a comprehensive inspection saying the vehicle's lease is coming to an end. We recommend that you perform a comprehensive inspection for two reasons. One, some people think a lease is a rental car and they can just return it in the condition they rented it. That's, worse. When you lease a vehicle, most people don't read the lease agreement. And I suggest you say to the customer, have you had an opportunity to read the lease agreement? Well, not really. Well, are you aware that you are required to return that vehicle in the condition you rented or leased it in? So if the tires are almost completely worn out, you're buying tires. If something else is wrong, you're going to end up paying for that. And those prices are extremely expensive. Some people are very surprised at the end of the lease how much they get hit up with a repair estimate. The other thing is they may want to keep the vehicle. And if they want to keep the vehicle, then they would want to know the condition of the vehicle. Am I going to return it or am I going to do a buyout option at the end? Number 17, the customer is considering if the vehicle is even worth keeping. How often do you hear somebody, I don't even know if I'm going to keep it? Well, you want to do an inspection so they can make that decision. Number 18, the customer just returned from a long trip and some things that could go wrong there. And one last one I want to add to that is the annual inspection or annual physical. We recommend that we sell these to our customers as an annual physical. So with that, we're done. I'm going to keep it open for questions. I'll go through some of the samples, but I did want to keep this close to an hour, and we went just a little over an hour from the time we started. Anyway, if you have any questions in the interim, kelly@kellythecoach.com. And if perchance you do not receive the handouts that I said I was going to send along for whatever reason, sometimes it goes into spam or whatever, please do let me know and I'll make sure that you get all of these samples. So with that, thank you very much for your attendance, and I encourage you to go back and sell more comprehensive vehicle inspections, making sure that you perform the walk-around inspections, the arrival inspection, making sure that we perform the proper written inspection during the season changes, make sure that we sell those, I should say, and make sure we sell the comprehensive inspection. So I'm going to open up the questions, and at the same time, I'm going to pull up a couple samples that I wanted to show you specifically on the 4-page inspection.